If you could only have one blade steel, one type of blade steel for the rest of your life, and all of the knives you got past this point had that steel, what would you pick? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And let me know in the comments section down below, what would you pick? What would you be stuck with forever? While you're down there, if you could, smack that like button. It's been a naughty boy. I would greatly appreciate that. Today, we're talking about the Caelum Blade Designs Ari. And this is a knife that I have already done an unboxing and first impressions of. It was kind of a review, but it wasn't a full review. That's actually what this is for. And here's the thing. The Caelum Blade Designs Ari is one of those knives that I get in on loan and it comes in and I like it. And it's one that I could totally see myself having and buying. But the problem is that my budget is often taken up by buying other things like eggs, milk, and oxygen. Welcome to 2023. So surprised was I when Caelum Blade Designs reached out to me to say thanks for the video and would you like to have one of your own to review? And here it is. The Caelum Blade Designs Ari, my own. And guys, massive shout out to them because they didn't have to do that. They knew I was going to be making more content regardless. They already knew my general opinion based on my first video. It was just something they did out of the kindness of their heart, as a way of saying thanks. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sending this my way so that I could actually put one of these in my pocket long term. That's amazing. Regardless, this is the full review of the Caelum Blades Ari. Let's go. All right, so I'm pretty stoked on this review, and the reason why is because it's not very often that I get the chance to compare a, used knife with a brand new knife. I don't get that. And sometimes when I review knives that have been in someone else's pocket for a while, it makes me wonder about things like, is the edge, has it been sharpened before? What about the action? Is this the kind of action that you can expect on a brand new knife? Or is this what you get after it's been broken in for a while? So it's pretty cool that I actually get the opportunity to check out both one that's been in someone's pocket as well as one that hasn't. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that. By the way, shout out to my man B Walsh, who was cool enough to let me borrow his to make the first impressions and unboxing video. That was pretty sweet. His is this one with the copper carbon fiber. Guys, just look at that. It's absolutely gorgeous on that inlay. I really enjoy that, and I think that it's beautiful what you can get when you impregnate carbon fiber with metal. It's a really neat effect. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the specs. So the overall length of the Ari is going to be about 8 3/4 inches long with about a 3.65 inch blade. The blades are made out of S90V. You have titanium handle scales and hardware with these inlays. Now, the inlays you can get in a couple different styles, or at least you used to be able to, because these are almost completely sold out. One of them is the copper carbon fiber. You can get the aluminum carbon fiber, and then they also have one with a black micarta inlay, which also looks pretty damn good, especially if you're not a huge fan of carbon fiber for some reason. That micarta is really going to stand the test of time and patina well. Or at least that's what micarta does most of the time. Let's talk about the design language. The clip is titanium and it is in fact reversible. I mentioned this in my overview, but you see that tab right there? That's phenomenal. It gives you the opportunity to go ahead and put the clip on the other side and then not have a gaping hole right there. I recently reviewed the Forus, and the Forus is a knife that's gorgeous, but it has an open tab slot. So when you pick a side, you're leaving that other side open and bare. And it's nice to know that not only are you going to protect the integrity of those threads, but it also doesn't get in the way of the ergonomics or the overall design flow. So that is pretty neat as well. I did see another review video from a different channel where they talked about the fact that they didn't like that you could see this much of a gap right there. They didn't like the way that it looked. And honestly, I don't necessarily mind it. It doesn't bother me, but I can see why that has to be there and why they couldn't just bring that inlay down, because they reversed the lock bar relief cutout. So a lot of times when you see lock bar reliefs, they're on the scale side, the show side. And in this case, it's not. And that actually helps because it allows you to have better ergonomics without having that gap in contact with your fingers. So that's pretty nice. This is one of those knives that is bigger than it looks, and that's really nice because you can get a very confident 4-finger grip on this guy. It doesn't necessarily have a finger cutout, but it's got this landing spot, which is really nice as well. There's jimping on the back, hallelujah, and you guys know I love jimping because it allows you to get a very confident grip for some fine detail work. Speaking of fine detail work, check out this. This is something that is not necessarily spoken of as often as it should be, but look at the size of that bevel. When this one came in originally, I did wonder, has this knife been sharpened before? Because you don't typically see edge bevels that wide from the factory. That's actually a good thing. It means that it's going to hold its edge for longer. It's going to be sliceier right out of the box. And it's also going to be easier to maintain on a strop because you're going to be able to find that angle really nicely. Typically, you have to sharpen knives from factory because knives from factory just don't come with that thick of an edge bevel. Like, for example, look at this one. This one is your, CJRB pyrite, and you can tell right away that the thickness of that edge bevel is nowhere near as thick as it is on the Ari. And I just wanted to show that as a quick comparison. This is kind of standard, and there's nothing wrong with factory edge bevels aside from the fact that they're typically way too obtuse. And they do that because it's easier to obtain a sharp edge, but the problem is it doesn't maintain that edge as long as it could, and then you end up sharpening it and reprofiling it to a bevel more like this anyways. So the fact that it comes like this from the factory with that nice wide edge bevel is a thing of beauty. We do have a single-sided captive pivot, and you'll notice the cloud design on that pivot. That is the Caelum Blade Designs design. It's the maker's mark, if you will. And if you didn't know, Caelum is Latin for sky or heaven, which is pretty damn cool. On the other side, you can check out the hardware. This hardware is all T8. And I'm not kidding. It is all T8. Here we go. We have a T8 driver right here, T8 for the pivot, T8 for the pocket clip, and T8 for the body screw. That is pretty damn sweet. Now, as far as internal milling goes, this knife would be supremely heavy if they didn't do any, but in this case, they did. You can see some pocketed milling right there on that side and some more on the lock side as well. And that's really necessary because otherwise this would have been really, really heavy. Right now, it's coming in at about 4.9 ounces, so it's not super light, but it's lighter than a lot of knives with this build design would be. Furthermore, I do find myself wishing that it had a backspacer to help protect this wonderful factory edge. And I don't normally say that. I don't normally gush about factory edges. But in this case, it's just the perfect combination because if you didn't know, S90V, which is what these knives are made out of, is really, really freaking amazing when it comes to edge retention. I'm going to go ahead and put the edge retention rating from Dr. Laren Thomas up on the screen so you can see just how good it is in comparison to other super steels. And yes, I do consider S90V to be a super steel. It is very corrosion resistant, has excellent edge retention, and it's not bad on the toughness either. So when you have the components to get really good edge retention as well as good edge geometry, you're going to have an edge that's going to last a very long time, and that's going to be very, very impressive. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about the action? Well, the action is in fact running on ceramic bearings. So brand new out of the box, you do actually feel the satin finish on the detent because it takes some time to wear the natural detent path in the blade, whether it's coated or whether it's satin, whether it's stonewash, or rather less so when it's stonewash because it doesn't have any grind lines to actually compete with. Now, that being said, it only took me about, I would say, 20 to 30 deployments of this knife before it was falling shut and feeling nice and smooth. So that action is great, which, you know what, you want a bit of a detent, but not a super strong detent when you have a front flipper here, because you want to be able to get a nice confident action. And especially if you're reverse flicking, you still want some detent so that it pops when you flick it and you don't have to use any wrist action. This definitely satisfies in the fidget category. Now, I know some of you out there are going to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about fidget factor. I want my knife to be sharp. I want it to look good and want it to do the job. I don't care about fidgeting with my knife. Well, listen to this. The things that make a knife fidgety are also things that make a knife great, not necessarily in spite of them. So for example, we want deployment options that make sense, that are easy to actuate. You get that with the deployment hole. You want to have nice snappy action so that when you do deploy it, it deploys fully and reliably each time. That has to do with the detent. And then of course we want it to lock up solid and also be centered so that blade is not running into the sides of the handle scales. And as you can see right there, it is bang on center, no issues, no worry. And when you do deploy it, you'll notice that there is absolutely no lock rock, there's no wiggle, everything is nice and confident. This is technically a frame lock because the frame is the lock. However, I would actually categorize this as a bolster lock because you have this overlay that's keeping you from being able to put too much pressure on the lock bar. That can happen, and when that happens, it's really frustrating. It makes you feel like the detent is too strong, and because that overlay is there, it's really difficult to actually put too much pressure on the lock bar because it's going to keep you from doing that. A lot of people would actually do prefer liner locks to frame locks because they have a tendency to not worry about the lock bar getting over travel over time, because with a frame lock, the more you hold it, the more likely you are to push that lock bar in, and that lock bar will continue to travel farther and farther and farther over until it's lost all integrity. When you have an overlay like this, purely it just keeps you from being able to do that, and it means that your knife is going to last a lot longer. I'm talking about a common thread here because this definitely seems to be a knife that you could 100% absolutely keep for a long time and not necessarily have to sharpen a whole lot because of that S90V blade steel. I haven't mentioned it yet, and I didn't know in the last video, but I do know now. I believe this was made by QSP. I believe QSP is the OEM, and QSP does an amazing job both in their heat treats as well as in their regular everyday fit and finish. Something else that I really enjoy about the Ari is that it's not necessarily a design that looks like everything else. It looks like it could almost be a harpoon, almost be a Bowie. It's definitely a drop point, but it doesn't look like anything else. When you pick up one of these knives, you know for certain that this is in fact a Caelum Ari, because there's not a whole lot out there that quite looks like this. Whether it's the oblong-esque deployment hole, which goes down almost to a tip, whether it's the half-dressed carbon fiber, it's just one of those knives that looks great, and you don't have to sacrifice a whole lot. I haven't mentioned the price. These are about $260 right now for the ones that are left. And guys, if you're interested in these, I don't have an affiliate link, but I would tell you if you want one, go ahead and get one. I believe they still have some of those with the micarta inlay left, but they are going fast, and I'm not surprised. The last video I made, they still had some with the carbon fiber, with the aluminum and the copper. Now they don't. Are they going to make more? I'm assuming so, but who knows? Who knows? I did talk to the owner of Caelum Blades, and he told me that he is planning more designs. When those will come out, I have no clue. But I do know that if this is the beginning, I cannot wait to see what comes next. Guys, if you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo. I will meet you in the comments section. And if you want to see more awesome knife content, make sure you smack that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.